Hi, we're back with the 12-2 podcast. Kevin?
Yeah, it's a heavy day.
Heavy day.
Not
Heavy
only
day.
is,
Heavy week.
we're doing this on 9/11.
Yep.
24 years ago, just under 3,000 people lost their lives.
Right.
And it was basically, we had lived in moral relativism up until that point where, the powers that be said good and bad were social constructs, and that went away because you had to look at that and say, there's evil in this world.
Evil. We looked at it and we saw it. Churches were full, right, for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we went back
to the normal stuff.
To life. And
kind of letting evil do its thing with us kind of maybe responding, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, yesterday, the tragic news in the middle of the afternoon. I was working and somebody, I think Christian my daughter came and said, "Hey, Charlie Kirk's been shot." Mm-hmm. And then I went to the gym and, of course, following it, and then while I was in the midst of working out, found out that he had passed away. Yeah,
producer Chris came down the hall and told me he'd been shot and it doesn't look good.
Right.
And he was very somber and big, tough guy, and I went and told my wife. We drove home. We're coming back last night for church, and we were listening to it. Kind of heard, top of the 4:00 news. He's, in surgery, but critical but stable. So we're thinking, okay, yeah. Then a few minutes later, got the word that he passed. I had to call my daughter. My daughter had called me. Hannah had called me, just totally upset, that he had been shot. And I had to call her and tell her, and it was hard just to, a lot of tears since then, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
My wife and I, of course, we watched the news last night. Of course, we're watching it. Mm-hmm. And for somebody I've never met, in fact, I've never been to one of his rallies, and nothing like that. Have the emotional response was, it's just been, there's grief there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, for those of you who don't know, Charlie Kirk, of course, is the founder of Turning Point USA. He started out at 18 and
but dropped out of college,
right,
to do this,
so
that he could minister to college students. Right.
It was
in this.
Way. They're crediting him for possibly the election of Trump because he turned a whole generation onto conservatism, but. What has been amazing is to watch his evolution because, he started out, conservatism and he kind of discounted the Christian aspect of it. But
as time went on,
that became almost the most important thing was Christ and what Jesus had done for him and what he could do for others.
Yeah.
Because he realized that was the foundation. One of the things, because of course his videos pop up, they were very socially media savvy. I think 100 million followers. I mean, it's crazy the impact that he had on this upcoming generation, or in Generation Z, is the fact that, he said the problem with our Constitution is the fact that it was written for Christian people, and you cannot have a non-Christian people living according to a Christian document.
Right, exactly.
And that's where we get this tension and this problem that we see today.
Yeah.
It's just ironic that one of his last posts were, Jesus Christ died so that we might live.
Wow. Man.
And, I think that is the thing that he'll be remembered for, is the fact that he was, not only did he use logic and reason and was willing to talk to anybody, especially those that disagreed with him.
Sure.
But he was a shining example. He shared the gospel every time he got the chance. Because ultimately, that's what matters.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm like you, never knew the guy. Always admired him. Right. Admired what he did, thinking he's doing great with the young kids. I'm listening to other people, kind of like you are. But today, one of the things to get your take on this, one of the folks on one of the news shows said that they think they killed him, but what they really did was multiplied him with what we might see. I hope and pray that is the reaction within the movement, right? Yeah. That he started.
I hope that the light that he had, and it's, he was... He was I heard somebody refer to him as a flickering flame, a burning wick that went to the darkest places. And the darkness hates the light.
Yeah, for sure.
And they sought to extinguish that light. I believe that it was ultimately because he was making a difference in people's lives, because he was pointing people to God, to Christ. I believe at the very that the origin of this comes from hell itself.
Absolutely, yeah, just total evil.
Yeah,
I mean, we see the worst in people. Folks celebrating, right?
Yeah,
even folks at the rally that were there. Videos. One of our staff members told me today about some videos that he saw today from TikTok where dancing and laughing and revelry and all that stuff. And it's just amazing to me that we've gotten to this place. We say we've gotten to this place. We talk about it maybe in church settings, and then when something like this happens, the reality sets in, and it's hurtful. I mean, everybody I encountered last night, I mean, there's just a numbness, right?
Yeah.
Just a no, this heaviness that's just no energy. It seems like after this happened.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, its origin is demonic.
Yep.
And demons require blood.
Demons require blood.
That's what they do. And Satan is unable to touch God.
Right.
And I was just reminded of the fact that when Satan goes after quote unquote God, the only thing that he can touch is God's creation.
Right. Yeah.
And those that are created in God's image, which are human beings, that's where he focuses his energy.
Yeah.
He is for the destruction of humanity because it is created in the image of God.
Yeah, it's kind of like the television show, right, where there's the bad guy and you got the good guy, and the bad guy sometimes kidnaps the child of the good guy and holds,
because he can't touch the good guy.
He can't touch the good guy,
right.
And that's very similar to what reality is.
Yeah,
and this is an example of that.
I was just reminded of Job. It's just interesting because it talks about the sons of God come before God, basically. And it's interesting that, God says, have you considered my servant Job? He's a righteous man. And Satan says, well, then let me go after him. It's interesting. Why does he pick the most righteous man to go after? It seemed like it would have been much easier if he wants to destroy somebody or something, that you would go after some guy who's already evil.
Who's an easy mark.
Right,
perhaps.
right. Yeah. But he goes, no, let me touch him. And we see the death and destruction throughout Job, and Job was able to stand firm. And you look at even Charlie Kirk's life. I mean, there had been time after time after time. I mean, that people have threatened his life.
Sure.
And yet he was still willing to go into the darkness, into the public settings, and engage people, just with words, logic, the truth.
Yeah.
And my problem is I look at the other side, the progressive left. Anytime throughout, and this has been the case throughout history. Anytime they lose on the argument, they always resort to violence.
Yes. And didn't Charlie say that we talk, basically, I'm paraphrasing it, we talk, and I try to talk so that we can avoid violence, because when we stop talking, that's when violence begins. And that's such a true statement. But Kevin, don't you think that part of the reason the left never wins the arguments is because their principles are not grounded in truth?
Of course.
For the most part. And I don't know that, you're not going to hear that on the news, right? Because you're just not. But in reality, what you and I know, what we understand in Scripture, that's the only valid truth. And because I firmly believe that the progressive left is about undermining and diminishing the cause of Christ so that we can live lives of licentiousness and just the way of license, right? It's the root word of that, and do what we want. And we've talked about this before, where our own individual desires and wills bump up against each other. and nothing occurs but chaos. But there's a reason, and I want our listeners to understand that there's a reason that Charlie always won the debates. There's a reason that as we're doing this podcast, that we're pretty firmly committed that the things that we're kind of sinking our teeth into are grounded in the Word of God. And because of that, that's truth.
That's truth.
And you cannot argue something that does not hold truth. One of the things I'm doing a lot with my clients is talking about, you hear these things like psychological safety and safe spaces and that kind of thing. And I quickly encourage them to remember that, look, there is no such thing as a safe space unless truth is there. It can't be a place where we're just going to say we're just going to act like the truth is not there, and we're not going to say what we need to say. We're going to say other things other than the truth to make you feel good, etc. Right. That's not safe. That's doing more damage to the individual. So I think this whole thing about the argument and Charlie always winning, it partly because he was a great debater. I mean, the guy was an amazing debater.
He was very intelligent, and he was given a gift. I mean, I believe that he was born for this time.
Yes, he was.
I mean, he just his ability and his grasp on facts, his ability to articulate it. But what was more interesting was his ability to articulate it if you disagreed with him, but to do it with a spirit of love, care, and compassion. And, he never belittled anyone.
Right.
I mean, he would have some fun, of course, but he always respected the person that he was discussing. But his most important, the only thing he was trying to do was to let them know what the truth was.
Yeah. Truth will set you free. He understood that.
Exactly.
And he wanted people to understand that logically. And it's funny how you see on the progressive left, we've seen, the whole thing, get in their face. You kind of hear this from the politicians. Get in their face. Take their names. Do this and da-da-da. Just belligerent responses to that which, hopefully, if for those who hold conservative values and are making the correct arguments, that's the response we get when we do that, because there is no argument on the other side. They can't win on the argument. So violence, belligerence, cursing,
intimidation,
cursing. Yeah. How about all these curse words that everybody's just throwing out now on the progressive left, all the F words and all that. It's like, what is this? What is this? And just crazy statements that really have no basis in fact whatsoever. It's amazing. I'm amazed how the lack of insult that the American people feel because of so many of the obvious lies that we hear from the progressive left. No logic, no sense, no nothing, and so many people fall for it. Half the country, Kevin.
Yeah.
Half the country fall for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did see it was a poll basically, and I think this was taken a few months ago or several months ago. It may have been in the midst of the election, and what they did was they went and they asked people, is it okay to assassinate or to get rid of Elon Musk was one of them, and Donald Trump was the other one. And on the left, I think that it was 47% said it would be okay for the country for Elon Musk to go away through violence, and it was 52% for Donald Trump.
Oh my goodness!
So, what that tells me is when you've taken, and this is what I say, when you begin to dehumanize humanity, violence will shortly follow. But what happened? How do we get to the point where we're dehumanizing each other? It first starts with when we deify God.
Yeah.
When we reduced our Creator to either non-existence or to something other than who He is as revealed in Scripture, it's not very long before we start dehumanizing His image, which is each other.
That's a great point. Just in the last century, right? We've seen things like just the whole idea of government, right? We don't have time to go through all this today, but how government has been co-opted by humanism, right? Pretty much everywhere, right? Yeah. And we just see in the United States the rulings taking the prayer out of schools, and 1962, 1962, and all on the basis of just this freedom or whatever, which really leads to bondage, and then the whole idea of Roe v. Wade, which was all based upon privacy, individual privacy, which takes away community, etc. Those are a couple things we're going to be talking about. I got a series coming up now, the message series. We're going to be talking about those acts as along with the New Deal back in the Roosevelt, right? The way back when in the 30s, and how that basically it for the most part diminished the value of the church in many ways. And those are three things that we've seen just in the past century that have been governmentally initiated major things that have done exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
that have taken the deity of God away and have marginalized him out of the mainstream and to the fringes, for sure. So you're right. I mean, that happens first, and that has been happening, and then man fills the vacuum. Right. That's what humanism is about. That's Marxism. And so I guess we're really saying we probably shouldn't be too surprised about what we're seeing.
No, but it should be a call to action for us as believers. That if you look at his example, he was willing to speak the truth with courage. I mean, he didn't shy away from it.
Yep.
He was willing to, but he was also willing to speak to those who didn't know the truth also.
Yeah.
And I think, a couple of the thoughts that I had, first of all, is that we don't know when the last day is that we have. Our life is a gift from God. We had no control over when we came into existence, and he has numbered our days.
Yeah.
And we don't know when the last one is. So we need to redeem the time. We need to look at each day that we are given as a gift from him and lean into that and lean into what he's called us to do. And a part of that, if we're believers, is to share the gospel and to share the truth of his love and his word with courage.
Yeah. What do you think? Or why is it that you think that we don't see a great fervency around what you just talked about? What do you think? Obviously, Satan's Lord of this world, whatever you want to call him, right?
Right.
He's able to get us distracted. He's really keeping us busy, etc. All that good stuff. Can you boil it down to any one particular thing in terms of his strategy, what he tries to do?
I mean, I think for a lot of us, it's distraction. It's what the Romans did. How did they keep their citizenship in check? They gave them bread and they gave them circus. The circus. It was bread and circus. Okay. So as long as we stay fed and we're entertained, a lot of us don't want to step out of line.
Yeah.
Because when we see people who step out of line, vis-a-vis Charlie Kirk, we see what can happen to them, and we don't want the same thing to happen to us.
Sure.
We've seen people canceled. It was just the DOJ just went through and saw how many Christians had been persecuted, and I use the term persecuted loosely, within the Biden administration, how they were given unfavorable treatment, and those that had been accusing them were given favorable treatment when it came to the court system. And we see that. And we don't want to, I mean, most of us want to just live our lives, raise our families, go to work, and be comfortable. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And I do think some of it, though, has even bled into church ministries, where those in leadership positions who have been called to shepherd the flock have become cowards and have not been willing to stand and tell the truth from the pulpit. And so it bleeds down into the congregation. And so, and we saw it happen even with, the whole LGBTQ plus thing, the transgender thing, politics, all of it. And I think that's how he has He got us comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, we got comfortable with our lives. We no longer had to fight. And then when comfort came, deception followed soon afterwards. And now we're not willing to give up the comfort in order to fight the deception.
Right. Yeah, no, I got you. And a great example that we tend to think of, or maybe don't think of enough, is one of the reasons we've not fixed this Social Security problem, right? With the great deficit, if there's any, even whatever's there, nor have we fixed the debt, the government debt, $37 trillion or whatever it is in debt, is because what generation wants to give up, right? The benefits, right? Yeah. How do we do that? So, I'll start paying more taxes to make up up the deficit, which doesn't solve the problem because it just kind of escalates until you cut the cost of government, right? So a good example for that. So what do you think? What do you think's next? I mean, what do you think? Let's think of Charlie's movement, the turning point. What it
Turning Point USA. I mean, it's I don't know. I saw it has 3,000 chapters across the world, basically in colleges and high schools. It can go one of two ways. Without the strong leadership of him, it can, of course, disappear.
Sure.
Or, like so many times when evil has sought to destroy that burning light, what they end up doing is spreading the light more. And so, my prayer, and I think we should all be praying, is that people will pick up the mantle.
Yeah.
And they don't have to do it like he did it.
Right. Sure.
But I believe it even starts with, hey, if you're a young man or a young woman, you need to start getting your life in order and be working towards, I'm just going to say it, especially if you're single, you need to be working towards being the type of person that could lead a family or create a family and be looking forward to that. If you're a young couple who is married, you need to be looking forward to, hey, start bringing life into this world.
Yeah.
And if you have kids, you need to be raising them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord, like the Bible commands us to. And I think for a lot of us, it's just as simple as getting serious about the Christian life, what we've been called to do and to be. And it may require us to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give up a few things that are not enhancing my relationship with Jesus. And I'm going to take on some things that do. And then when I have the opportunity, I'm going to speak truth to my neighbor. I'm going to speak truth to my children. I'm going to teach. I can read the Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share with what God is revealing to me.
Right.
To those who I am next to, those who I'm responsible for, that person that I'm married to. And I think if we take that up, and I'm not saying that, we all need to go start walking on the college campus and saying, I'll argue with you. No.
Yeah.
I think we need to walk where God has placed us and to commit our lives to the furtherance of the kingdom.
So using his strategy, right, in our own sphere of influence, really is what you're talking about, right? Not being afraid to argue. Argue is not a good point, but debate,
right?
If that's what
Ask
it comes
questions.
to. Ask questions, be willing to engage, bring things back to the truth, which we need to make sure that we know.
We need to know the truth,
We have to know it, yeah.
So we have to get into where truth is, which is the Word.
And it's funny because I've seen couple people this week where, and this invariably happens, particularly with young folks, because the needs with children are they're just voluminous, right? And folks that, been away from the church, whatever, you're checking on them, et cetera. And the message that we're spread too thin, we got too much to do, and we can't. But so often they never reduce those other activities. And I say to them, keep in mind, we as the church, and I can say this pretty confidently about our church. You can't say this about every church, right?
Right.
But we're part of the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
And you have to remember that. But yet we see people all the time, their church participation, their community with other followers of Jesus, their participation in small groups, Bible studies, that becomes a part of the discretionary time that they have, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And once that becomes discretionary time, it becomes totally subject to priorities, right? And if my priorities are not centered there, that's the first thing, that church and church participation time that I'm going to give up.
Right.
Because, my kid, I got to go see my kid play soccer because I played soccer. And, that's a big source of pride for me, right? I want to see him, and he's got to do good, and she's got to do great in dance because her big sister, or because the neighbor, whatever the case might be. So,
because I need to give them every human advantage, and we forget that the spiritual is the most important thing.
Yeah,
their relationship with Christ is more important than them being the star of the soccer team.
Exactly. One of the things that you that you mentioned was the gentleman Wilson. Last time we were together earlier this week on the podcast, Doug Wilson made the point about we all live in a theocracy. It just depends on who the theo is defined by, right?
Right, exactly.
And so the idea is that's one of the reasons why human government has been co-opted, right, by Satan, because of the secular humanistic focus that's there.
Right.
And we can go back and look at Genesis 9. We can look at Saul, when all the Israelites wanted a king, right? And we see how everything just went south in regard to all that. But so something happened yesterday I thought that was pretty interesting. And we in Congress yesterday when one of the I think it was the Congress lady Boebert from
Colorado.
Colorado, asked for. I think there had been
a moment of silence.
Speaker Johnson had done a moment of silence. She requested that we have a verbal prayer.
Right.
And chaos sort of ensued rather than entering into a verbal prayer for him. This reminds me of a time the chaos came from those on the left who were not wanting to engage in a verbal prayer. I would say for the most part, not everyone on the left, but that's where the uproar came from. It reminds me of a time when you and I were engaged about probably nearly 30 years ago.
Long time.
When a young lady that we had in our youth group had become possessed demonically.
Right.
And I remember that I was kind of getting ready for the event that evening. You and your wife were ministering to her, going through a time when there was obviously something very wrong in her life.
Exactly.
And she described to you hearing voices that were telling her really horrible things. And you asked the question, well, when do you start hearing these voices? And she said, well, I hear them every time I try to start praying. And you said, well, let's pray.
Let's pray.
Know the kind of guy you are. And things started going really haywire with her.
She completely changed. Yeah.
She completely changed. You could tell that the demonic possession sort of kind of took over.
Yeah.
Exemplified
itself.
It simplified itself. You brought it out right there. And we spent the next couple of hours with her and with
praying
that,
over her.
praying over her until ultimately the demon left. Well, so I think when I saw that last night of what happened on the congressional floor, I went back to that time.
Yeah.
Because I said, prayer is what the demons cannot handle. Now, I'm not saying that everyone in Congress that spoke up against that last night was demonic, but there was a demonic presence there, I firmly believe, that was absolutely petrified of the idea that in this hall that had been so co-opted by humanistic philosophy and Satan himself, that there would actually be a prayer to God.
Satan doesn't care who you worship as long as it's not God.
Right.
And when they were going to say a prayer, they did not want that to happen.
And it was not one of those generic prayers. A moment of silence can be anything.
Right.
That's pretty safe, right?
But when you speak, you're going to say who you're praying to.
Right. Absolutely. And I appreciate last night the president too making comment that he knew that Charlie was with his God.
Yeah, as we end, I just was reminded of the quote John MacArthur said, all death can do to the believer is to deliver him to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can take comfort in that.
Yeah.
And
True.
Hopefully, our prayer is that we will we'll be like Charlie.
Yeah. More Charlies come about.
Yeah.
That's probably what will happen. Thanks for making the extra time.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just I just hate it had to be over this.
Yeah, it's sad. So sad. So much going on.
Yeah.
So thanks a bunch.
No worries.
We'll see you next time.